And joining us now is Kacper Kita, political columnist. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So a while ago, it seemed like we're destined for a scenario whereby we're going to have a far-right government in France. Now, according to the latest polls, this might be less probable, but also it seems like Emmanuel Macron and his rivals on the left might be able to overcome their differences and form a bulwark against the far-right. Do you think that we're actually seeing a shift in mentality on the French political scene?
Well, yes, it seems like for the time being, the basic scenario would be that Marine Le Pen would not get a majority, and the big question would be what you mentioned, whether Emmanuel Macron and the left would be able to, first of all, would have a majority of their own, and second, would they be able to form to form an alternative government? Because we have to remember that neither the presidential camp nor even further so the left is a single entity. In the presidential camp we have a few parties, but at the end of the day, if the president would be determined to do something, they would probably follow him. But on the left, this is obvious that we have four different parties who, for many months have been, there's been a lot of bitter infighting between them and many serious differences on policy, both in terms of foreign policy and internal policy. And they have formed an ad hoc coalition when Macron dissolved the parliament. So yes, it looks like for the time being, because of the fact that they were able to overcome their differences and in most of districts, which is crucial in the French electoral system, we will either the presidential camp or the left removed the candidate who finished third, and therefore the better positioned candidate is about to be set up against Le Pen's candidate on Sunday, because in this very specific French system, you can have 3 or 4 candidates going into the second round, and then you have just the first past the post system. But with these negotiations who were going on Monday and Tuesday and finished in Tuesday evening, with most of the candidates from the left and most of the candidates from the presidential camp deciding to form a bloc, and the better positioned one would take on Le Pen on Sunday. Now it looks much more probable that Le Pen would not have a majority, and it seems possible that they may have the numbers to form an alternative majority, though it would be a slim one, and one certainly not easy to form because of the fact that many of these politicians are united primarily by the rejection of Le Pen, and less so by a common program.
And now, having in mind what you just said, how does the political fragmentation in France affect the likelihood of forming a stable government?
Yes, certainly we have a few scenarios. The easiest scenario but also quite challenging, obviously, would be if Le Pen did get a majority, but for the time being it seems rather unlikely. If we would have Macron's preference would be to have a situation where he has a majority with the center right and the center left, and therefore he could govern without the extremes, as he would like to put it, without the far right and without the far left. But this does not seem that likely. It seems that any government would be conditioned on Jean-Luc Mélenchon's LFI at least accepting such a government, which would be something very challenging, especially since there have been many serious conflicts between Mélenchon and Mélenchon's party and Macron's camp. But it is possible that Macron would give the prime ministership to a left left-wing politician, a representative of the left camp, and they would form a government that would be acceptable at the same time for Macron and for Mélenchon. But such a government would have probably a slim majority and there would be many differences on what policies it should conduct. But yes, this is something that is possible, that such a government may be formed, especially with possibility of Le Pen gaining a majority. If such a scenario would not happen, then certainly this perspective makes the left, both from the center left to the hard left and all parts of Macron's camp, more willing to cooperate.
Speaking of Mélenchon, we often talk about the radicalism of the far right, but what about Mélenchon's party? What does it make him so radical in the perception of most voters, so that many people are not even willing to contemplate entering into a coalition with him, especially among Macron's followers?
Yes, well, Mélenchon, which is, I think, also important from our perspective, has very controversial views of foreign policy. For example, he's staunchly anti-Israel. He has been routinely accused of anti-Semitism and catering to anti-Semitism by Macron's camp. He has been routinely accused of catering to anti-Semitism for electoral reasons. For example, he declared that he wants sanctions on Israel, that he believes that Israel is conducting a genocide, etc. Also, he has a reputation for being very anti-American and very anti-German. For example, he has had quitting NATO as part of his program when he ran for president. He has been also critical of engaging in helping Ukraine militarily, though for these elections the condition of forming a coalition from the center-left parties has been for him to formally support helping Ukraine, though this hasn't been quite precise. To what degree would he be willing to help Ukraine? Because in the past, for example, just 3 months ago, before the election, he would say that at the end of the day, Ukraine needs security from Russia, but also Russia needs security from NATO, and he has been very anti-NATO over the years. He has also been quite Eurosceptic from a left-wing point of view, saying that the European Commission is a body that is quite dysfunctional, that European Union needs a revolution. He has also been for many years quite anti-American. For example, he used to have good relations with Hugo Chavez. He has been he said very nice things about Fidel Castro. So this type of also anti-American left-wing perspective. For example, when Russia...
So a long list of controversies,
Crimea.
in other words. Unfortunately, we have now run out of time. Needless to say, Mr. Mélenchon could be a liability to his allies, but whether this will affect the ultimate result of the election remains to be seen. Kacper Kita was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Have a nice day.